Hello everyone, welcome to TFT 6 for T20 aspirants. Today we will be studying the next two subtopics of topic 2. Topic 2 is sociology as science. The topics that we will be studying today are subtopic B, major theoretical strands of research methodology. Topic C, positivism and its critique. As mentioned in the last TFT, for sociology to qualify as a science, a research methodology was needed. Now, what is research methodology? Research methodology is sociological perspective plus research method. Sociological perspective leads to a theory. So we have different sociological perspectives by different thinkers, and that is why we have different theories. Today we are going to study the sociological perspectives related to positivism. Okay. We know that any science, whether it is physical sciences, natural sciences or social sciences, it includes a theory as well as a practical concept, practical component. Now here in sociology we have, for theory we have a sociological perspective, for practical we have research methods. Now you should understand that these theories are different from natural sciences theories, and these research methodologies are slightly different from the practical aspect of the natural sciences. This you need to remember. Still it is a science because it has a theoretical component and a practical component. In the syllabus you have a term known as theoretical strand. What does it mean? You should not be afraid of this. It is simply another term for the various theories. Strand means a kind of classification. Because we do not have a single theory for sociology, we have different theories, hence theoretical strands. That means sociological theories will be classified into different types. So this is the theoretical strand. Now, sociological perspective is divided on the basis of scope of studying sociology. Scope, which we studied in topic 1b, we have two kinds of perspectives. We have the micro perspectives and we have the macro perspectives. For the micro perspectives, they are studying sociology in parts. They are studying parts of sociology, whereas the macro perspectives are studying society as a whole. So, micro are those theories which belong to the specific school of thought, whereas macro theories, they fall under the holistic or the generalist school of thought. Therefore, sociological perspective are divided into micro, macro approaches. This is for partial or part. This is for whole. This is specific. This is generalist. Okay. Now these are also known as interpretive, and these are also known as positivist theories. Under positivist theories, you remember, we have Durkheim, who was a proponent of functionalism, and we have the conflict theories where Marx was the proponent here, Durkheim. Under the interpretive, if you remember, we had phenomenology, then ethnomethodology, third, symbolic interactionism. Today we are going to study the positivist theories, that is the functionalist and the conflict theories. First one is functionalism or functionalist perspective. Here the major thinkers were Spencer. You remember that Darwin, I correlated him with Darwin's theory of evolution. Second was Durkheim, the one who said about social facts, solidarity, the very same thinker. Okay, so what is a functionalist theory or a functionalist perspective? Here you should correlate it with Darwin's theory of evolution as well as an organism. So what happened that in an organism there are many organs. For example, head, limbs, heart, blood, nervous system, veins, and all these organs have certain function. They do not do the function of each other. These are specified. And that is how the organism survives. Similarly, in a society, there are different parts. We have economy, we have education, we have family, we have polity. Each part has a certain function and which helps in the survival of a society. Now all these parts or all these organs, they are interrelated. They do not exist independently. They are mutually dependent on each other, and that is why together they help in the survival of an organism or a society. We are going to see how. For example, in the human circulatory system, the vena cava brings deoxygenated blood, or the blood which does not have oxygen, okay, to the heart, the right part of heart, and then from there it goes to the through the pulmonary artery to the lungs. Here it becomes oxygenated blood or oxygen rich blood. From here through the pulmonary vein it goes to the left part of the heart, and then through the aorta this oxygen rich blood is distributed to different parts of the body. Now here you will see that the tissues have a certain function, the vena cava has a certain function, the right part of heart has a certain function, the pulmonary artery has a certain function, lungs, pulmonary vein, the left part, aorta, every organ of the body has a certain function. So if a certain part stops functioning, then it will cause a disruption in the whole functioning of the body. Therefore, the functioning of each body is necessary for the stability of the body. Now what happens in a society? Suppose a child is born in a hospital, then he is born and brought up by a family. Here he is taught about the basic norms and values, how to behave, how to talk. He is taught the linguistic skills, for example Hindi or English or the vernacular language, Marathi, Gujarati, Odia, all these languages. And then he is enrolled in a school, starting from play school, then primary, secondary, higher education, where he is educated, he is given education so that he can be civilized, so that he will gain employment. After completing his education in school plus college, he gains employment and he enters the economy of the nation. He starts contributing and he starts earning, and he is also a beneficiary of certain political schemes. And then at certain time he enters into marriage, and then he starts a family. So this is like a circle. It goes on. Okay? Starts from family, then here, like this. This circle goes on. So every organ, or for example, family has a certain function, school, education system has a certain function, schools plus colleges, then economy has a certain function to provide employment and for the growth of the nation. Similarly, polity has a certain function for the employment schemes, children's schemes and other schemes. Then marriage has a certain function. Then finally, family. Thus, all these organs of the family or parts of the family have a certain function. They need to function properly. The school needs to function properly, because if the education system is not right, it will affect the employment perspective of the child. He may not a good job. He may have a poor lifestyle. He may not contribute to the development of the nation. He might not be married, or perhaps get married into a very low class family, right? Or he may not have the necessary skills which are needed to function as a spouse. Therefore, every organ of the society is necessary for the development of a person, for the society to be stable, because stability of society depends on the stability of its people, of the relationships, of the institutions. The major thinker of functionalism is Durkheim. He wrote about solidarity of society. Solidarity means unity, strength of society. Therefore, he studied primitive societies, the earliest societies, and the modern societies. And he observed that the primitive society was united because they had similarities, and therefore the solidarity was known as mechanical solidarity. But the modern society, even though it was based on differences, why differences? Because people did not have the same education, did not have the same occupation, did not have the same class, yet they were dependent on one another. Because every occupation, one occupation is dependent on another occupation. For example, an officer depends on his or her subordinates. A household depends on even the domestic worker, right? So there was a kind of interdependence. Just like in an organism, there was a division of labor. What does division of labor mean? It means that one part has every part has a certain function. For example, in the case of body, every organ has a certain function. In the case of society, every social institution has a certain function. Similarly, in division of labor also, every section of people has a certain occupation, has a certain function, and every section depends on the other section. Thus, you can see despite differences, there is a sense of solidarity or unity, and this is known as organic solidarity because this solidarity is equivalent to that of an organism. This theory of functionalism was improved upon or studied further by two thinkers. They are Talcott Parsons and Robert Merton. We are going to study them in much detail in topic 4. Their theories were known as structural functionalism. Right? So we are going to study them in topic 4, but you need to remember that they fall under functionalist perspective also. The second type of perspective which falls under positivism is the conflict perspective. We talked about unity, stability. Now we are going to talk about difference, change, chaos or struggle. This will be a more apt term. Thus, we are talking about the opposite of stability. Okay. The major proponent or the author of this perspective was Karl Marx. He studied capitalism and the economy in detail, and he observed that different classes existed in the economy and the interest of each class was different, and there were differences, plus this led to a certain tension because they had different goals and different values. Thus, you can see that while Durkheim, he said that different sections of people or different occupations, they had a division of labor and there was mutual interdependence because of which there was unity or solidarity. But what does Marx say? He says that this difference in the different sections of society, in the different classes of society, leads to tension, struggle, and thus conflict. Right? So you can see how the very same thing is being seen by two sociologists, by two thinkers very differently. That is why we have different perspectives. That means different way of looking at same things. Now, while Marx studied class difference or class struggle in detail, this again we are going to see in topic 4. But there were other differences also. For example, between men and women. Therefore, we had feminist theories between parents and children. We had intergenerational differences. Then between cities and villages, we had the concept of urbanization, slums, between rich and poor. Also, nations, we had the concept of development and dependency. Then upper castes and lower castes, we had the concept of purity and pollution, especially studied by the Indian sociologists. Right? So, differences does not only mean class struggle, but between men and women, parents and children, cities and villages, rich and poor, upper caste and lower caste too. Now, apart from this theory, class struggle, we had a few modern conflict theories. They were not confined to class conflicts or the study of class conflicts, but they studied, for example, the conflict between the whites and the Negroes, then between the Asians and the Europeans. The thinkers who studied this were C. Wright Mills, Lewis Coser. So you have to simply remember these names, not go into much detail, but you need to remember that we had a modern perspective of these conflict theories and they were not confined to class conflicts. And we had the whites and the Negroes, Asians and the Europeans. That means there was a broadening of the scope of conflict theories. C. Wright Mills and Lewis Coser. Now, because the conflict theories, they were involved with change, that is why they were known as radical or activist theories. But the functionalist theories, they dealt with social order, stability. That is why they were known as the conservative theories, conservative perspectives of positivism. Right? So if we want to summarize it, how are we going to do it? We have positivism. It has two theories, conflict perspective and the functionalist. Functionalist is related to social order, stability. Therefore, it is known as conservative perspective. While the conflict theories, they focus on change, struggle. Therefore, they are radical or activist theories. Now, what was the major advantage of studying this conflict perspective? Major advantage was that it helped see society through the eyes of the minority, right? The underdogs, you can say in informal language. Now, usually the minority rarely have a say in policy making, but with the advent of the conflict perspective, they now had a say, had a voice. Who were these minorities? For example, the blacks, the untouchables in India, women, and other sections of societies who previously were not visible in policy making. Now they had a certain voice. So this you should remember, that this is the major advantage of conflict perspective. Now we need to study positivism, especially as its critique. Okay. Now you should know that any perspective without critique cannot survive. Okay. So we need to have a knowledge of every critique of every perspective. In sociology, especially in mains answer writing, this aspect has to be taken care of. Even if you make notes, you should know the positive aspects and the negative. That means the critique you should know for every theory. This leads to having an analytical view. This is known as analysis. Now, what were these critiques? The critique was mainly done by non-positivists. This we are going to study later in portion E of topic 2. But before that, we are going to just see the summary. First one was, they said that the facts which these positivists boast of, they always have a context. They do not exist in vacuum, and context means there is a certain value. Okay. So if you say why something happens, why that apple fell down, or why marriage is changing, why we now are having love marriages, so the answer will not be black and white. There will always be a value attached. Okay. So this value the non-positivists were saying. They also wanted to bring in the commonsensical perspective, and they said that human being, he is a creator, he constructs a social reality based on his common sense. So this construction, this is internal. So this should also be included while studying sociology as science. Similarly, third was the social action perspective. Whenever a person acts, he or she attaches a certain meaning to the actions. So this meaning also is value centric. The fourth one is, even while conducting social research, there is a bias, because the researcher, sociologist, he or she is also a human being, has a certain perspective, has a certain ideology, has a certain prejudice. So what happens to the bias which comes in unconsciously? Another aspect, the fifth one, was that there were difficulties while testing also. For example, while doing observation 1, there were certain social conditions. Then maybe during observation 2, the social conditions changed. There was a certain social change. So this testing part was also difficult. So in the critique, you are going to write about the context of the facts. You are going to write about the common sense, then the social actions, which was full of meaning, the bias in research, and the testing aspect. Now, that is all for today. You will now have to read few sources. The first one is Nitin Sangwan, Chapter 2, Sociology as Science. This is important. And apart from that, a small note is attached along with this video. So please go through it. And this will give you a guideline or a roadmap to study. Right? So this is just a skeletal framework. This is not the muscular structure in the body. You have to go for both. The muscular structure will be provided by Nitin Sangwan, and we are going to provide the notes. That means the guidelines or skeletal structure. So please go for both. Read, ask doubts, and revise. Most important. So, all the best. Happy learning. By Decipher and brainstorming.